Hey, hey, I'm trying to get in the habit of actually showing up on here. I'm gonna be real with y'all. So I am getting these questions from the Q&A that I posted on my Instagram page. If you're not following me on Instagram, it's TheAmbergJ. You can find me there, booling and cooling, okay? That's where most of my content is at this time, but um, certain guidelines change depending on the platform, so you just have to adjust, all right? So I'm letting my people on Instagram know that I am live. And you know what? Whether I anybody shows up here or not, this is information that I'd like to be able to continue to answer. Um, but the first question is, why are you using a orange gun in your content? Well, I'm glad you asked. First of all, it's attention grabbing. It definitely is attention grabbing because I get a lot of questions about that. Um, it is a dummy gun. It's not a Cerakoted Glock 19. Let me start off. For those of you that don't know, my name is Amber GJ. This is my YouTube channel, Becoming with the Amber GJ, where I share with you different life lessons that I am starting to just apply, but I also want to make sure that I'm doing so in real time in a more authentic way online. So I'm a Spelman grad, Georgia Tech grad. I work in the firearms industry. I've been working in the industry for about 6 or 7 years now. 2 years working for myself. This is year one, fully doing so. It's been a ride. I've truly enjoyed myself. Um, but yes, there are some guidelines that have been shifting and changing with the Instagram platform, and a lot of my work, especially with explicitly talking about guns and gun safety and firearms ownership, has been reported. So I began to just experiment with things that I could get away with that could not be deemed as me. Promoting violence, if that makes sense. So I intentionally have been working on only using music that is, of course, trending audio, but I've tried my best to avoid using things that have curse words in it, um violence in the lyrics, things of that nature. Like, it's cute, it's fun, it's trendy, but that with the type of content, especially educational content that I like to share, it's not always viewed as appropriate by um the platform gods. Okay. um so yes, I switched to the orange gun really for the plot. I was tired of getting my content flagged, and I wanted to make sure that I was being abiding by the rules of the platform while also ensuring that I was, showing up in a way that I was able to continue to be my full self. I guess that's the best way to put it. Someone asked me, how did I get into the industry? I actually did by accident. I um I was in grad school. It was like year 1 or 2 in grad school. I was working on my PhD in history and sociology of technology and science. I ended up leaving that program shortly after pivoting my research, and decided to test out a belly band that was gifted to me, and I went for a light jog because I'm not a runner. It's not that I can't run. It's not my choice of exercise. I will say that. I would prefer to get on the Stairmaster for cardio, but, yeah, went for a little light jog. It was a pretty stressful day in class at the time, and, this is during the pandemic, and I had to go to the bathroom, and I ended up at a range that was not too far from my apartment at the time. So, Of course, you can imagine, like, okay, that's cool and all, but I actually ended up going to the range, buying some ammo, and at that time, this particular range, required you to do what's called a counter proficiency test, which is an opportunity for you to show the sales associate at the counter that you understand the proper handling of a firearm. And unbeknownst to me, I was being tested in a way that if I did not pass, I would have to, of course, take a handgun safety course after. So, yes, I did pass that counter proficiency test, excuse me, and I was allowed to go onto the range. So, I'm on the range, I'm out there shooting, um, and the manager comes out and we start chopping it up. And I realized that the people that work at the range, there's no one there when I walk in. So the people who are working there, they're watching me through the viewing window. And the manager comes in and they're just like, asking me who I am and kind of find out we had some things in common. And I was essentially offered a job. And that next week, I met with the training manager and, of course, like the floor manager for an interview. I let them know that I did have some interest in the gun industry. It's not something I had really considered, being that I was in grad school. I did not realize that there was a lane for me to be able to go into the gun industry. Um, Especially with someone with my background, I did not really consider that my hobbies and my passions for safety and community protection could be something that I could do full time. And that's something I was really thinking about because, of course, grad school. And nobody really is, in grad school thinking that they're going to pivot and do research on um, the uptick of women's interest in gun safety and gun ownership. So I took that job, and I mentioned before this is during the pandemic. Mind you, my previous experience with, educating others about gun ownership and gun safety is actually, from my time in different community organizing spaces. So working with other activists, who are interested in learning about their rights, especially when it pertains to dealing with, officers and law enforcement during public protests. So that is really where things began with me being an advocate for safe gun ownership, gun safety, and things of that nature. So yeah, well, like I said, I took that job, the height of the pandemic, and that's when I really started to see a lot of different articles about Black women becoming the one of the largest groups of growing groups of gun owners in America. And me being someone, my dad taught me how to shoot when I was a kid, and someone who privately spoke to other folks about gun ownership and, recommended guns, recommended places to go to the range. I was probably like 22, 20, yeah, 22, 23 at the time. I did not see myself taking on the role of becoming an authority in the field. And that's not a title that I take lightly, or it's not a small feat either. So I took on the opportunity to accept mentorship from a few folks who were very pivotal in my growth in the industry. And I essentially was put in a position where I was the go-to person for women who were coming by themselves, or women with children interested in learning gun safety. So I mentioned before, when I went to this range, there was a counter proficiency test, right? And now I'm behind. Instead of me being in front of the counter as a customer, I'm behind the counter as a sales associate. So every single day, I'm witnessing and letting people demonstrate to me that they are safe handlers of firearms. And I ended up so when people do not pass that test, it becomes a situation where the person that is administering the CPT, I'm going to abbreviate it from now on because it's I don't want to get too tongue tied to keep saying that phrase. People who could not pass that specific test, that sales associate would sit behind the counter and hosts a 35-minute handgun safety orientation, where that requires us to go into the classroom with you, whether you by yourself or with a group. More than likely, it would be groups of 1 to 10 folks at a time. We go into the classroom, we go over slides, we go over side alignment, not too much on stance and grip. I'm gonna be like stance, grip, side alignment. Those are all like standard things that I do now in my handgun one courses. But this was sort of like a intro opportunity. So think 30 to 40 minutes in the classroom and then on the range really quick. And you got the gist of what you needed to be able to safely handle firearms when you went onto the range for the first time. But you really did not gain all the information that you needed to be a safe firearms owner after that experience. But for about a year and a half, I was teaching about 5 to 20 people a day handgun safety in that role. And I remained in that role um, until grad school became a little bit too stressful for me. And it became stressful to the point where I could not show up in my full capacity in other spaces that I was extremely passionate about in order to remain up on game in my classes. So I left that role and I began to be a assistant at gun shows towards the end of my grad school experience, where I was a responsible person, which is essentially the person that takes your information down and ensures that the background check for your gun purchase um, is filled out correctly. That's the best way to put it. Okay. So I started doing that. I started working as a range safety officer at outdoor ranges for instructors who had larger classes. And for those that you don't know, a range safety officer is essentially the person that makes sure that everyone is following the rules on the range. And this went on for a few years, and I was pulled to the side and was kind of asked like, why don't you do this yourself? And I will be honest with you guys, grad school did a number on me, and it did not cross my mind to take on another venture when I knew that I was a bit at capacity of what I could handle at that time. So I took a step back and I reevaluated some things, and I had been journaling about really taking that leap of faith in joining the gun industry. But that's not something, it's not a traditional career path. It's not something that was really marketed to me. Like me, my peers, industry peers, they get promoted. Of course, you're working with people with military and law enforcement backgrounds. So you automatically deem them more capable and you deem them to be more fit for promotions and things of that nature. And that doesn't mean that wasn't qualified. It's just not something I was really going for because in my mind I'm like, I need to finish grad school. But God was really holding me accountable to just really see and open my eyes that I was making a connection between a passion that I had for just guns in general as a child, for my dad teaching me um, before I was even a teen, was trying to make that just like close that gap. And that year is when I started to learn more about my family's history with hunting and gun ownership and protection. And it started to just open my eyes to see like, okay, maybe this is something I need to pivot and do. So, of course, I took my time, I did my research. Maybe it took too much time because there was a lot of risk I could have jumped out and just did early on in my career, but, I really just wanted to make sure that this is something that I was going to stick with because it's really easy to just jump from idea to idea and not be really clear on what you're doing. But something told me to just reread my statement of purpose for grad school, and essentially what I had proposed for my research, all it needed is for me to add the word gun safety in certain spaces. And it was exactly what I was proposing to be doing, you know? I just had not and so what I will say is that like when you're pivoting from something that is so traditional, especially when it's um the academic space, it's really easy to get stuck um and only focus on the traditional. You know, you only focus on what you're good at and not really flex those muscles of what you're truly passionate about. And I got caught up in that. I'll be real and say that. So I took the leap of faith. I became a licensed and certified instructor. And before I even did that, I became a licensed and certified dealer. And that's not something I was expecting to do, but I was working in the industry for long enough to see that there were gaps, especially when it pertained to seeing women that look like me in leadership, but also seeing people that look like me that truly understood compliance and what it meant to be able to obtain and obtain a firearm and exercise your Second Amendment rights. I kept running across folks who were gun owners, but were sort of teetering that line between um, knowing what they're doing, but not being proficient. And it was important to me to ensure that I was doing my part by taking what I learned in my role and ensuring that the people that I was coming across had that information. So I sort of accidentally stumbled upon like truly being in this industry because I began to like do research on how to allow. Well, I guess the best way to explain it is get. I was doing research on ensuring that folks that had a criminal background could reinstate their rights to be firearms owners. When I started working as a responsible person at gun shows, that was like a really big topic. And I actually was able to talk to a few men who were able to get their rights restored, and I just thought that was, like, really cool. And, of course, you know, you have these different conversations, and you're able to advocate for folks and help them find these different, applications to be able to restore their rights, and you think, "Oh, maybe I need to go to law school." But it's like, "No." God was like, "No. Focus, focus." And just for, like, background, my bachelor's degree is in comparative women's studies, and my, thesis focused on Black women's social justice movements, abroad and online. So, I essentially was doing research at that time on Black women's social justice experiences, but also the way that they use online spaces to advocate for safe gun ownership, community building, community gardens. So think food banks, think bartering services. So for example, you know, if you want to learn how to shoot, but you are a photographer, we can barter those services. Wink, wink. You know, things like that. Things that require community, things that require a politic around sustainability, but also requires you to understand the overall oppressive structure that we are living within. And essentially, my pivot to the gun industry forced me to question, okay, so what 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 am I supposed to be applying in this space? Like, what is needed in this space, and what is needed from me? Because I truly believe that when God positions you to be able to walk into and be open to entering an industry that is predominantly white, predominantly male, predominantly law enforcement, military background folks, it's a bit intimidating. I'm not law enforcement or military. I mean, the closest I've gotten to the military is Air Force ROTC. Um, and that was in high school. That was in high school. That's not my ministry. Um, but when I look back over my life, there was always little moments um, that pointed to me being somewhere in the advocacy and safety community. Um, and I've always said, God, if I'm meant to be a professor, you lead me to the right subjects. So, for those of you that don't know, my main research and focus is, digital media and women's experiences with media and social media. So that's like digital third spaces. That's everything from MySpace to Facebook groups. That's essentially the scope of it. And when I was finishing grad school, a lot of my research sort of pivoted to me really questioning the demonetization strategies of certain platforms for different creators. At that time, I was not a creator. And then lo and behold, this time last year, I decided to start sharing my different concealed carry techniques on Instagram, and it kind of just took off. And it's something that I feel extremely, I know I was called to do, right? But I feel extremely aligned with, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be able to serve in this manner. Uh, because at the end of the day, it is service. I was really slow at becoming licensed and certified, even though that, a lot of things, especially when you're dealing with firearms, you really should be licensed and certified before you teach anybody anything. But I would be honest and say when I started in this industry and when I was a sales associate at that range, I did not know that I was capable of teaching 5 to 20 people a day gun safety and introducing them to their first shots or being able to witness their first shots. And it really empowered me more than it even empowered the people that I was training because I realized I was instilling them with the confidence and the ability to protect themselves, but also believe that they can protect themselves and believe that they can come into spaces where folks don't look like them, where it might be a little bit intimidating, in those spaces, and just take care of your business. That was what was really motivating me. Folks, I run into so many folks who like own firearms and they never use them. Never use them. But me coming into space has helped me to reshape my politic around safety, around a community accountability, but also it's helped me to get a little bit more mindful and intentional about who I'm in community with. Because at the end of the day, we all have our, as far as the collective, we all have our responsibility of what we're meant to do. And I hate to say things like when shit hits the fan, because I am not someone, although I do have some prepper and doomsday sort of um, ideologies in how I prepare different things and how I consume different things. I'm very my approach is essentially, I would like to say, modern in how I speak to folks because I don't like to instill fear. I don't like to create relationships on trauma, and I don't want to give the impression that the only way that you and I can connect is if we have a shared experience of pain. Um, my interest in gun ownership, my interest in guns is from a genuine curiosity. And I try my best to approach things from a um, high level perspective. I try my best not to sort of talk down on the folks that ask me questions and things of that nature. Even with my content, I try my best not to be negative, even though I know like negative content gets a lot of feedback. I know like I'm intentional about not responding to others' content in the space, because it's just like, the main thing that I was praying for when I began to make content online about my work in the industry, about my passion for concealed carry fashion, and responsible gun ownership, is that I knew that I wanted to show up as my aligned and divine self. And I knew that I wanted to be authentic in a way that you could tell the difference between me and any other creator who might be doing something similar online. So I say all that to say, um, life is a journey, and I am thankful that every day I get to wake up, and I'm thankful for every opportunity that I get to serve on in the range space. I never expected the range to be my classroom, but sometimes what is truly meant for you is not in your plans at all. And I'm thankful that God put it on my heart to serve in this community. And I look forward to be able to show up here on YouTube as a light and as a resource for those of you interested in gun ownership, confidence building, looking to see another woman in this space who is sort of not really, that doesn't really fit the mold of what is usually demonstrated in this space. So I didn't plan to be on here for long. I thank y'all so much. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And of course, put in the comments the things you like to see in the future. I do Q&As. I'm not able to go live on Instagram at this time, but I do Q&As on my story from time to time just to really um, just get an understanding of like what you guys want to know about me, what you guys are, wanting to know about the industry. I don't know everything, and I'm proud to say that. You will never know everything in this industry, and I'm very grateful for the people who have uh, ushered me into this space, and it got me to where I am at this time. I do not take that for granted. And I look forward to continuing using the culmination of my experiences to further enlighten others to not only protect themselves, but protect their communities as well. If you don't know, I am the founder of Gale's Futuristic Fire, GAYLESFUTURISTICFIRE on Instagram. If you ever want to go to the range, if you ever want to see some more educational related content, you can find it there. But this particular space is where you will learn more about me and my fullness. And whether it's nobody on the live, one person on the live, I will be showing up to share more about my journey, my expertise, and just, answer more questions outside of like the text format, or video format in a sense. I want to do more long form content in 2025, and this is only the beginning. It's Christmas Eve. I pray that you all are well, rested, spending time with family, and I hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you so much. Bye.